Roman Reigns returns with new Shield and destroys Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. What if I told you that everything you thought you knew about Roman Reigns was a lie? What if I told you the tribal chief never walked away after WrestleMania 41, he was simply watching, waiting, and planning something far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined? Tonight, on Suplex Saga, we're breaking down one of the most explosive, shocking, and game-altering moments in modern WWE history. Roman Reigns didn't just return to Monday Night Raw. He returned with a new Shield. And he didn't just show up to make a statement, he came to destroy Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. Cold. Calculated. Ruthless. He didn't arrive with old allies, nostalgia, or sentiment. No, this was a rebirth. A vengeance forged in silence. Reigns re-emerged with two brand new soldiers. A towering male enforcer with Samoan blood thicker than vengeance. And a mysterious, masked woman whose presence alone was enough to shake the foundation of the women's division. The arena fell into darkness. That iconic Sierra, Hotel, India, Echo, Lima, Delta, Shield call ripped through the speakers like a war cry from the past. The crowd roared, but this wasn't 2012. This wasn't Rollins, Ambrose, and Reigns making a name. This was the new law of WWE being written in blood, fire, and twisted steel. Reigns stepped into the ring like a war general. And what followed wasn't a beatdown. It was an execution. Seth Rollins, WWE's Golden King, the man who once betrayed the Shield to climb the ladder of success, was tossed down that very same ladder by the one man he thought he'd buried forever. And Becky Lynch? The man of WWE? She walked into the chaos swinging a steel chair and left being dragged unconscious across the ramp, courtesy of the new Shield's female assassin. But to understand the gravity of what just happened, we need to rewind. Not just days or weeks, but months. Let's go back to WrestleMania 41. The world was watching as Roman Reigns put his legacy on the line in a triple threat match against CM Punk and Seth Rollins. It was supposed to be the battle to end all battles. Reigns walked into the match as the longest-reigning champion of the modern era. He was unbeatable. Unshakable. Undeniable. But what no one saw coming was betrayal. The architect did what he does best. He manipulated the game. With Paul Heyman in his corner, Rollins played both Punk and Reigns like chess pieces. He slithered into the match, waited until the perfect moment, and when Punk and Reigns exhausted themselves in battle, he struck. A low blow to Punk. A stomp to Reigns. 1, 2, 3. The reign ended. The dynasty shattered. And the tribal chief? Gone. No press conference. No Twitter post. No post-show backstage segment. Just silence. Radio silence. 4 weeks. Then months. While Seth Rollins paraded his new title across Raw, forming a monstrous faction with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, Roman Reigns was nowhere to be seen. No vignettes. No teases. Just a gaping void where the bloodline once ruled. WWE commentators speculated maybe he'd retired. Some insiders whispered about contract renegotiations, or a real-life injury. But behind closed doors, something else was happening. Roman wasn't retreating. He was rebuilding. The truth was, the tribal chief had grown tired of the tribal games. He'd given loyalty, family, brotherhood. And in return, he was stabbed by Seth Rollins, and abandoned by Paul Heyman. So, Roman turned his eyes to the future. Not the bloodline of yesterday, but a new dynasty, built in silence, sculpted in vengeance, and fueled by the ashes of betrayal. He sought out warriors who didn't want fame. He found those who knew pain. Who lived in the shadows. Who fought not for gold, but for purpose. On June 16, 2025, in Boston's TD Garden, Monday Night Raw was electric. 17,000 fans in attendance. The show opened with Seth Rollins in the ring, championship slung over his shoulder, surrounded by Breakker and Reed. Becky Lynch had made an earlier appearance, hyping her upcoming feud in the women's division, unaware of the ticking time bomb set to explode just hours later. Rollins laughed at the crowd. "Roman Reigns is history," he shouted. "The bloodline's dead. I run this industry now." The boos were deafening. And then, darkness. Complete blackout. No music. No graphics. Just the sharp buzz of anticipation. Then came the sound. That sound. Sierra. Hotel. India. Echo. Lima. Delta. The crowd erupted in a thunderous wave of shock and nostalgia. Cell phones lit up the arena. Faces dropped. Jaws opened. Everyone thought the same thing: is this really happening? The Shield theme kicked in, and through the smoke at the top of the ramp stood a figure. Roman Reigns. Hood pulled low. Tactical vest strapped. Ice cold as steel. But he wasn't alone. To his left, a hulking man, easily 6 feet 4 inches and built like a tank. To his right, a woman, slender yet fierce, cloaked in black. Faces obscured. Identities hidden. But their presence? Unmistakable. Dangerous. The three stood in formation. The arena shook with chants. And then, march. As Reigns descended the ramp, he locked eyes with Seth Rollins. It was war. What happened next will be analyzed, replayed, and remembered for years to come. Roman hit the ring like a freight train. Braun Breakker charged, and caught a Superman punch that sent him flipping backward. Reed tried to tackle Reigns, but got folded in half with a spear that nearly cracked the mat. It was a demolition. Then the two unknowns joined the fray. The male figure ripped off his hood. The crowd gasped, "Zilla Fatu. Son of Umaga. Built like a gladiator. Vicious. Precise." He lifted Breakker into a Samoan drop like he weighed nothing and slammed him so hard the ropes shook. Reed didn't last long either. Then came Becky Lynch. Charging down the ramp, chair in hand, Irish fire blazing. But the mystery woman stepped into her path. Steel met palm, and the woman caught the chair mid-swing. Tossed it aside. Becky swung again, but the female Shield member ducked, countered, and dropped her with a spinning backbreaker that echoed through the arena. It was chaos. Brutality. Dominance. And when the dust settled, Reigns stood in the center of the ring, his new Shield beside him. Rollins, battered, broken, humiliated, crawled at his feet. Lynch, unconscious, dragged by the woman like a message. And then, a triple powerbomb through the announce table. Seth and Becky lay motionless in a wreckage of metal and shattered dreams. The camera zoomed in on Roman Reigns. No words. Just a stare. Like death itself had returned to Raw. This wasn't nostalgia. This wasn't a comeback. This was an uprising. A new empire, formed not from unity, but vengeance. Roman Reigns was done playing chess. Now, he was flipping the whole damn board. To truly understand the fury behind Roman Reigns' return, you have to go back to the very moment his empire crumbled. WrestleMania 41 wasn't just a main event, it was a war. A war that was supposed to immortalize Roman Reigns. A triple threat match that should have cemented him as the most dominant champion in the modern era. For over 3 years, Roman had reigned with iron authority, walking into stadium after stadium with gold around his waist and the bloodline behind his back. He was untouchable. Unbreakable. Until the night everything changed. The match was Roman Reigns versus CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. 3 men with a history that stretched beyond championships. 3 egos, 3 legacies, 3 agendas all colliding in the main event spotlight. CM Punk had returned to WWE after nearly a decade away. He was leaner, angrier, and sharper than ever. His mission was personal, to reclaim the throne he believed was stolen from him. He came back not just for the title, but to prove that he was still the best in the world. Seth Rollins walked into the match with a different fire. The architect. The visionary. He wore suits made of arrogance and confidence. His promos were laced with venom, and his laugh echoed like the hiss of a serpent. Rollins wanted the title, but more than that, he wanted to humiliate Roman Reigns on the grandest stage of them all. And Roman? Roman came to defend his legacy. He walked into WrestleMania 41 the same way he had walked into every pay-per-view for the last 1,300 days, as the undisputed, undeniable, unshakable head of the table. The early part of the match was a blur of chaos. Roman and Punk brawled like old enemies. Chairs clashed. Barricades were broken. Seth played the long game, ducking out, waiting for his moment, letting the two icons exhaust themselves. But as the match reached its fever pitch, it became clear that something was off. Roman looked vulnerable. His Superman punch didn't land with the same force. His spears didn't finish the job. He was sweating harder. He was gasping faster. Meanwhile, Seth was waiting. Watching. And that's when the betrayal unfolded. Paul Heyman, Roman's wiseman. His counsel. His bloodline's last true advisor. The man who had walked beside Roman since the beginning of this reign. The man who had whispered strategy and held the title with reverence. That same Paul Heyman, on the outside of the ring, shouting instructions, slipped something into Seth Rollins' hand. A low blow. A steel chain. A distraction. In the chaos, CM Punk was laid out outside the ring. Roman turned to confront Seth and walked straight into a brutal shot from the chain, followed by a stomp to the exposed floor. The crowd gasped. The referee counted. 1, 2, 3. And just like that, Roman's reign was over. No bloodline came to save him. No Usos. No Solo Sikoa. Nothing. As Rollins celebrated, draping the championship over his shoulder, Heyman stood behind him, clapping. The look on Roman's face as he crawled to his knees, stunned and betrayed, was the stuff of legend. His mouth was bloodied. His eyes were wide. He reached out toward Paul Heyman, and Paul didn't even look back. It wasn't just the loss that shattered Reigns. It was the betrayal. Because in that moment, Roman Reigns realized he had no allies. The bloodline had fractured. Heyman had moved on. And Seth Rollins, his former brother, had played him like a fool. The fallout was immediate. Roman didn't attend the WrestleMania press conference. No interview. No post-show appearance. WWE officials said he'd left the arena the moment the match ended. Over the next week, speculation flooded social media. Did Roman retire? Was he injured? Was this the end of the tribal chief? Meanwhile, Seth Rollins wasted no time pouring salt in the wound. The next night on Raw, he stood in the middle of the ring, championship in hand, grinning from ear to ear. "I told you all," Rollins said. "The Shield? Dead. The Bloodline? Dead. Roman Reigns? Dead." And then came the unveiling of the new faction. Seth Rollins, flanked by Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. Two absolute wrecking balls of muscle and mayhem. Rollins called them the New Authority, a nod to his past, and a shot at the legacy of the Shield and the Bloodline. They ran through tag teams like a hot knife through butter. They left destruction in their wake. Rollins laughed. Heyman whispered in his ear. And the WWE Universe began to accept what seemed impossible just a month before. Roman Reigns might really be done. CM Punk, bruised and battered from WrestleMania, quietly faded back into the shadows, choosing to focus on recovering and dealing with his own battles. But Roman? Roman had vanished. Weeks turned into months. No promos. No appearances. Not even a mention from WWE programming. At first, fans were angry. Then they grew worried. Then, curious. Rumors started to fly. Some believed Reigns was rebuilding the bloodline. Others believed he was biding his time for a shocking return. A few cynics thought he'd taken his money and walked off into the sunset, leaving the WWE universe behind. And then, subtle signs. A cryptic promo played during a commercial break in early June. Just static. A heartbeat. A flickering R in the corner of the screen. Another week, a black and white image posted to WWE's Instagram, showing the shadows of three figures standing in the rafters. On Twitter, Reigns posted a single phrase. Justice returns. And that's when the Shield rumors began. Wrestling fans are detectives. They don't miss anything. The moment the word justice entered the conversation, message boards lit up. What if Roman isn't reviving the bloodline? What if he's reviving something else? Something darker. More violent. More personal. People started connecting dots. Zilla Fatu had quietly been pulled from NXT appearances. Naomi was mysteriously absent from SmackDown. Tamina had deleted her Twitter. A few eagle-eyed fans spotted a mysterious woman training at the WWE Performance Center wearing a black tactical vest. And then came the night. June 16, 2025. Monday Night Raw. Boston. TD Garden. Seth Rollins stood in the ring, cocky and unstoppable. Breaker and Reed at his side. Heyman in a tailored suit, smiling like a kingmaker. Rollins grabbed a mic. Roman Reigns is yesterday's news. I run this damn industry now. The crowd booed. Rollins grinned. What? You all thought he'd come back? Come on, he's probably at home watching this on TV, crying into his tribal necklace. I ended the Reigns era. Long live the new king. Then, the lights went out. And the war began. The betrayal that had been buried under months of silence erupted into one of the most devastating ambushes in WWE history. Roman Reigns had not forgotten. He had not forgiven. He had watched the man who broke their brotherhood rise to the top again. He had seen his own legacy be spit on. He had witnessed Paul Heyman, the architect of his glory, flip sides like a weather vane in the wind. And now? He was back to burn it all down. But not alone. Not as a fallen king looking for redemption. As a warlord with two weapons the world had never seen before. And this time? There would be no betrayals. Only bodies, only fire. Only justice. And it all began with WrestleMania 41. The betrayal wasn't the end of Roman Reigns. It was the beginning of something far more terrifying. The beginning of vengeance. And the end, for Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, was coming faster than anyone could predict. When Roman Reigns disappeared into the shadows after WrestleMania 41, a power vacuum erupted at the top of WWE. CM Punk, bruised and silent. Cody Rhodes, locked into other battles on SmackDown. And just like that, the man who had spent years knocking on the door of the main event walked through it and sat on the throne. Seth Rollins. And he didn't just walk in alone. He brought war with him. The night after WrestleMania, Monday Night Raw opened with a cold open. No intro. No pyros. Just the image of Seth Rollins stepping into the ring wearing a championship and a smugness so thick it could choke the air. The crowd rained down boos. Seth soaked it in. Arms spread wide. Chin lifted high. I told you, he said through gritted teeth, his voice sharper than glass. I told you all. I warned you. The age of Reigns is over. The bloodline is dead. And now? Now we begin again. A new reign. A better reign. And then came the reveal. Two men stood at the top of the ramp. Silent. Dangerous. One was Braun Breaker, young, explosive, and unhinged. A second-generation monster bred for WWE greatness. And the other? Bronson Reed, brute power, raw aggression, and a mindset that matched Rollins' thirst for dominance. They joined Seth in the ring, standing like bodyguards in a Roman emperor's court. The symbolism was no accident. Rollins, the architect, had rebuilt his own empire, not from loyalty, but from fear, power, and ruthlessness. And the faction had a name. The Authority 2.0. A callback to the regime that once controlled WWE programming. A slap in the face to everything Roman Reigns stood for. And a reminder that Seth Rollins was not just a wrestler, he was a mastermind. Over the next 4 weeks, Rollins' faction tore through Raw. They dismantled anyone who posed a threat. Kevin Owens? Flattened in a 6-minute match and left unconscious after a post-match assault by Breakker. Shinsuke Nakamura? Taken out backstage before his scheduled title shot. Sami Zayn? Ambushed on the entrance ramp by Bronson Reed and tossed off the stage like garbage. Every week, Rollins came to the ring smiling wider. His promos dripped with venom. "Do you feel that?" he said one night. "That's the smell of freedom. The stench of Roman's dictatorship has finally been washed off this show. And I am the new ruler of Monday Night Raw." He wasn't just defending his title. He was dominating everyone who dared breathe in his direction. And with Paul Heyman whispering in his ear, the alliance felt bulletproof. Heyman barely spoke on camera, but his presence was undeniable. Every time Rollins spoke, Heyman was behind him, smirking with pride. Every time Breakker or Reed wreaked havoc, Heyman nodded like a proud father. Fans and analysts started to worry, was Heyman building a new dynasty? Had he finally found his perfect champion in Seth Rollins? It sure seemed that way. Backstage reports began leaking. Apparently, Heyman had been working on Rollins' ascent for months, even before WrestleMania. Sources claimed that Heyman and Rollins had late-night meetings. That Heyman had handpicked Breakker and Reed for their psychological makeup. That he'd studied Roman's habits and weaknesses. That he knew exactly how to dismantle the bloodline piece by piece. And it worked. The WWE locker room began to shift. People started aligning themselves with Rollins, or avoiding him completely. Main eventers didn't want to cross him. Mid-carders didn't want to get flattened. Even commentary started changing its tone. Corey Graves called him the new standard. Michael Cole hesitated when mentioning Roman's name, unsure if it still carried power. The era of dominance wasn't over. It had simply changed hands. But there was one thing Rollins couldn't escape: history. For all his bravado, all his wins, all his power, there was one ghost he couldn't silence. Roman Reigns. Every arena he entered, there were chants. Roman. 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 It was the shadow he couldn't shake. No matter how many titles he held or how many bodies he stacked. The name of his former brother haunted every show like an echo. And Rollins hated it. One night, during a promo in Chicago, Rollins snapped. The crowd started chanting, "We want Roman." Rollins paused. He smiled. Then he leaned into the mic. "Roman Reigns is finished," he said. "You don't chant for ghosts. You chant for legends." Roman's not a legend. He's a footnote. The crowd booed louder than ever. And backstage? The writing team knew they had just poured gasoline on the fire. Rollins' words trended on social media instantly. Hashtag Roman Reigns, hashtag footnote, hashtag Tribal Chief returns. Fans started tweeting theories. Podcasts dissected every word. YouTubers made breakdown videos. The Roman Reigns return speculation was officially back in full swing. But Rollins didn't stop. He started calling Roman by his real name in promos. He said the Tribal Chief gimmick was a mask, one that had finally cracked. He mocked the Samoan heritage. The family values. The idea of honor and legacy. And then he went further. He started calling Becky Lynch the only real champion in our house. He said that while he ran WWE, Roman was probably at home playing dress-up with a plastic lei and tribal tattoos. The disrespect was so loud, so venomous, that even non-WWE outlets began to report on it. ESPN, Bleacher Report, even TMZ picked it up. And fans began to wonder. Why was Rollins pushing so hard? Why was he poking a bear that had disappeared into the woods? The answer? Rollins didn't believe Reigns would ever come back. He believed he had broken him. And when someone like Seth Rollins believes you're gone for good, he builds a throne right on top of your grave. But Roman Reigns wasn't buried. He was watching. And he was building something darker than anyone had imagined. And while Rollins grinned, and Breakker and Reed laid waste to the Raw roster, and Heyman plotted the future behind the scenes, Roman Reigns was plotting revenge. And when he returned, he wouldn't just come for the throne. He would come to destroy everything Seth Rollins had built. And tear down everyone Rollins had trusted. June 16, 2025. TD Garden, Boston, Massachusetts. The night began like any other edition of Monday Night Raw, but the tension was different. You could feel it in the crowd, in the air. Even through the cameras, it was palpable. Something was about to happen. No one knew what, but everyone could feel the electricity running beneath the surface. Like the tremble before an earthquake. Like the quiet before a storm. And right in the center of it all stood the man who had taken everything, Seth Rollins. Draped in red and gold. Championship around his waist. That smug, knowing grin carved into his face like a permanent expression. He stood in the middle of the ring, mic in hand, flanked by Braun Breaker on his right and Bronson Reed on his left. Paul Heyman stood in the corner, arms folded, lips tight, but the glint in his eye said it all. They had the power. The muscle. The momentum. Rollins started to speak. Boston, you are looking at the undisputed king of Monday Night Raw. The crowd rained down with boos, louder than ever before. But Seth didn't flinch. He smirked, enjoying the venom, basking in the chaos. For weeks, he continued, I've had to hear it. From you people. From social media. From the marks online. You all want to know, where is Roman Reigns? When's he coming back? Is he watching from the shadows? Is he going to rise from the grave and challenge the king? He paused, scanning the crowd like a snake sizing up its prey. Well, here's your answer. He's gone. Done. Buried. Finished. The crowd roared with chants of Roman. 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 Seth laughed. That chant? It's dead. Just like the bloodline. Just like Roman Reigns. I put that dog down at Wrestlemania, and I didn't just take his title, I took his soul. Those words. That sentence. It was the last straw. The lights cut out. Complete and utter darkness. The arena fell silent. Not a sound from the commentary team. Not a word. Just silence. And then, that sound. That infamous sound. Sierra. Hotel. India. Echo. Lima. Delta, Shield. The crowd went berserk. Phones shot up like fireworks. Grown men jumped from their seats. Women screamed. Kids clutched their signs. Chills ran down spines. And then, music. That pounding, militaristic drumbeat of the old Shield theme filled the arena like thunder rolling across the sky. Fog began to pour from the entrance. The lights flickered. And through the haze stepped a figure. Roman Reigns. But this wasn't the Roman we knew. Gone was the golden glove, the adorned lei, the bloodline regalia. This Roman looked like a ghost resurrected from 2014, a black tactical vest, black boots, hood drawn over his head. But his eyes were cold. Empty. Calculating. Like someone who had seen too much. Lost too much. And returned for one reason, retribution. The roar of the crowd reached a fever pitch. But then, they saw them. Two more figures stepped out from behind Roman. One, a tall, hulking man dressed head to toe in black, his face covered by a black cloth mask. His presence alone was enough to make Breaker and Reed tense up in the ring. The other figure? A woman. Lean, athletic, her face partially hidden under a tactical hood, her long hair spilling down the sides of her mask. She moved like a predator, graceful, controlled, lethal. The three stood side by side at the top of the ramp, the Shield formation resurrected, but reimagined. And then, without a word, they began to walk. Slow. Deliberate. Like wolves approaching a wounded animal. Inside the ring, Rollins barked orders at Breaker and Reed. Hold your ground. Don't flinch. But you could see the fear in their eyes. The crowd was deafening. The Shield was back. But this wasn't about nostalgia. This was about destruction. Roman and his new allies reached the ring. They paused. Then, without hesitation, they charged. Chaos exploded. Breaker lunged at Roman and was immediately met with a Superman punch that flipped him inside out. The sound of the impact echoed through the TD Garden like a shotgun blast. Bronson Reed tried to cut off the mystery male, but was speared so violently through the ropes that both men tumbled to the floor in a heap. Inside the ring, Seth Rollins stood alone. He backed into the corner, wide-eyed, clutching the ropes like they could save him. Roman stepped between the ropes and locked eyes with the man who once betrayed him. "Remember me?" Roman growled. Seth tried to escape. Too late. Roman grabbed him by the hair and yanked him into the center of the ring. Seth swung wildly, desperate, but Roman ducked, hoisted him up, and drove him down with a monstrous powerbomb that left the ring trembling. Then, more chaos. Breaker tried to recover, only to be grabbed and lifted like a child by the masked male. The man ripped off his hood to reveal himself as Zilla Fatu, the son of Umaga. Built like a truck, with fire in his eyes. He slammed Breaker with a Samoan drop so brutal it looked like it cracked the mat. Outside the ring, Bronson Reed staggered to his feet, only to be met by a flying knee from the mystery woman that sent him crashing into the barricade. The camera cut to Seth, dazed, crawling. Roman knelt beside him. "You thought this was over?" Roman whispered. Seth tried to speak, but Roman shoved his face into the canvas. And then, music. Becky Lynch. The crowd erupted. The man was coming to war. She ran down the ramp with a steel chair in hand, swinging before she even hit the ring. But the female Shield member stepped in her path. A block. A strike. The chair flew from Becky's hands. She threw a punch. The mystery woman ducked. Countered. Lifted Lynch up and dropped her with a backbreaker so clean it looked choreographed. The crowd was stunned. This woman wasn't just a body in black gear. She had technique. Skill. Brutality. She was a weapon. Roman barked a command. Zilla and the woman rolled Seth and Becky outside. The commentary team screamed. "What are they doing?" The three new Shield members lifted their targets high. Triple powerbomb. Through the announce table. Seth and Becky were left in a pile of splinters. Silence. The crowd couldn't believe it. Roman stood over the wreckage. This wasn't a message. It was a funeral. Then, Roman grabbed a mic. He looked dead into the camera. "You thought you broke me," he said. "But you only built something worse." He tossed the mic. The Shield theme played again. And just like that, Roman Reigns disappeared through the crowd, flanked by his new army, leaving nothing but chaos in his wake. This wasn't a return. It was an uprising. This wasn't justice. This was war. And Raw would never be the same again. If Roman Reigns is the architect of this new war, then Zilla Fatu is the wrecking ball. For months, WWE fans whispered his name in passing. A son of the Anoa'i dynasty. A shadow in the training halls of Booker T's reality of wrestling promotion. A name that carried weight, but not attention. Not yet. Until now. Zilla Fatu stepped out of the mist on Raw not just as muscle, but as a statement. A 6'4", 260-pound juggernaut forged in legacy, pain, and silence. The moment he tore off the black tactical hood on June 16, jaws dropped. Zilla Fatu, silent, brooding, and terrifying, was not a sideshow. He wasn't an understudy. He was Roman Reigns' hand-picked enforcer. The new right hand of destruction. But who is he? Why was he chosen? And what makes him different from every other Samoan powerhouse to come before him? To answer that, we have to go back, deep into WWE history and deeper into the bloodline itself. Zilla Fatu is the son of the late Umaga, one of the most feared and respected forces in WWE during the Ruthless Aggression era. Umaga wasn't just a Samoan monster. He was the Samoan bulldozer. Explosive. Unpredictable. A man whose presence alone could silence a crowd. And Zilla? He's all of that, with more control. More precision. More wrath. After Umaga's untimely passing in 2009, Zilla grew up with the weight of a legacy too heavy for most to carry. While his cousins, the Usos, Roman, Solo, were rising through the ranks, Zilla was on a different path. Trouble followed him early. There were run-ins with the law. Streets before spotlights. For years, he wasn't talked about in wrestling circles. He was whispered about. But in 2022, that changed. Zilla stepped into training under Booker T in Houston. And from the first day, people knew he wasn't like the others. He was focused. Obsessed. Booker T called him a natural-born killer in the ring. His sparring partners described him as explosive and calculating. He didn't cut promos. He didn't post on social media. He trained. He fought. He learned. But he didn't debut. And that silence only added to the myth. Fans speculated he would join the bloodline on SmackDown. That he'd show up to support Solo Sikoa. But he never did. Behind the curtain, however, Roman Reigns was watching. According to internal reports from WWE, Reigns had been scouting Zilla privately since early 2023. Not just watching his matches, but meeting him. Training with him. Shaping him. Because Roman wasn't just looking for a soldier. He was looking for someone loyal. Someone who didn't want fame, but vengeance. Someone who understood what betrayal felt like. Zilla had been left out of the family storylines for years. He was never brought in during the bloodline's peak. He wasn't in title matches. He wasn't in promotional videos. He was a forgotten son. Just like Roman, after WrestleMania 41. And that's what made them dangerous together. When Reigns returned with the new Shield, it wasn't nostalgia. It was strategy. He didn't bring Seth. He didn't bring Dean. He didn't call in the old brotherhood. He brought new blood. And Zilla was the perfect weapon. On his first official night on Raw, Zilla proved why Roman chose him. Braun Breaker, a man who bulldozed half the roster, charged at him. Zilla didn't flinch. He stepped into the strike, absorbed it, and countered with a spine-shattering Samoan drop that made the crowd erupt. Bronson Reed, a 330-pound monster, tried to overpower him from behind. Zilla turned, ducked the clothesline, and drove him into the steel steps with a running knee that looked like something out of a Fight Club. He didn't speak. He didn't gloat. He just destroyed. And when Rollins crawled out of the ring, gasping for air, Zilla followed. He didn't slam him. He didn't showboat. He stared. Dead into Rollins' eyes. Like a lion measuring its prey. And the message was clear. Roman isn't just back. He brought an heir to violence. Someone the old Shield never had. Someone the bloodline never unleashed. Someone who fights without ego. Without showmanship. Just raw destruction. Backstage, sources said that the locker room was stunned after Zilla's debut. Superstars who had trained with him in NXT whispered that WWE had no idea what they'd just unleashed. Trainers said Zilla had been intentionally kept off television until he was perfect. Until he was ready to kill the moment. And he did. Now, fans are calling him the new right hand of Reigns. Some say he's what Solo Sikoa should have been. But others think he's something even more dangerous. A throwback to the savagery of Umaga, but with Roman Reigns' mind guiding him. Already, chants are breaking out across arenas. Zilla's gonna kill you. He's being compared to a young Brock Lesnar. He's being projected as a future world champion before he's even had a singles match. And Paul Heyman? Conspicuously silent. He hasn't addressed Zilla Fatu. Hasn't commented. Hasn't spoken his name. Which only makes things more ominous. Because the last time Paul Heyman ignored a name, that name came back to dethrone a dynasty. What Zilla represents is bigger than just muscle. He's a bridge between two legacies. Between the savagery of the past and the strategy of the future. Between the chaos of the old Shield and the order of Roman's new empire. Zilla Fatu is the muscle of the new Shield. But he might just be the future of the Anoa'i dynasty. And with every step he takes, every opponent he drops, every stare down he owns, he's proving one terrifying truth: this isn't the bloodline anymore. This is something worse. This is the beginning of Bloodline 2.0. And it's wearing tactical gear. WWE has always been built on shock. But sometimes, a single moment drops like a bombshell, and sends tremors across the entire industry. That moment happened when the lights returned, the music blared, and the chaos unfolded on Raw, June 16th. But amid all the carnage, among the shattered tables and flattened superstars, there was one image that stood out. One that fans couldn't stop talking about: a woman, cloaked in black, face obscured, hair cascading down her shoulders, standing over the motionless body of Becky Lynch. Not just standing. Owning the moment. Dominating the space. Because this wasn't just another female superstar. This wasn't just a surprise run-in. This was a signal. A warning. That the women's division had just been turned on its head. But who is she? Where did she come from? And why did Roman Reigns, of all people, bring her into the fold? Let's break it down. The second this mystery woman stepped onto the ramp during Roman Reigns' return, fans knew something was different. WWE has no shortage of talented women, but this wasn't the type of competitor who danced for the crowd or posed for promo shots. This wasn't glamour. This was war. Becky Lynch, known as the Man for a reason, charged into battle with a steel chair, determined to even the odds as her husband was getting dismantled in the ring. The crowd erupted. They expected carnage. But they didn't expect her to get intercepted. By someone she couldn't outfight. The mystery woman caught Becky's swing midair. One clean motion, steel against flesh, and in the blink of an eye, the chair hit the ground. Becky fired back. Right hand. Left. None of them connected. Another. The woman ducked, countered, and delivered a spinning backbreaker that dropped Becky to her knees. The crowd gasped. That wasn't luck. That was calculated. This wasn't a rookie. This wasn't an understudy. This was a predator. Becky tried to rally, tough as ever, but the woman kept coming. A knee to the gut. A slam against the barricade. No taunts. No celebration. Just violence. And when Roman Reigns and Zilla Fatu finished brutalizing Rollins in the ring, this mystery woman dragged Becky back into the chaos, completing a triple powerbomb that left both Rollins and Lynch broken in a pile of wreckage. For the next 24 hours, the internet exploded. Who is she? Is she from NXT? Is she part of the Anoa'i family? Is she a returning legend? Or worse, someone we've never seen before, trained in the dark, polished for destruction? Here are the top theories. Theory 1. Naomi returns to the family. This is the theory that hit Reddit first. Naomi, real name Trinity Fatu, has been off WWE television for months, and rumors of her return have been swirling since the Bloodline storylines began splintering. She's family. Married to Jimmy Uso, a former women's champion. One of the most athletic women on the roster. But here's the twist. If it's Naomi, she's changed. Gone is the glow. The dancing. The light. What we saw on Raw was someone brutal, tactical, emotionless. Is it possible Naomi has been reprogrammed by Roman? Turned from a crowd-pleasing entertainer into a strategic assassin? If so, the story writes itself, Naomi turning her back on the fans to embrace her family's darker side, and becoming the first woman in Shield history to execute the triple powerbomb. It's poetic. It's powerful. And it's terrifying. Theory 2, Tamina goes rogue. Another strong possibility? Tamina Snuka. A fierce competitor with direct ties to the Inoue family, Tamina has long been respected, but underutilized. She's known for her physicality and ring toughness, but has never been truly unleashed. Until now? Fans have noted that the mystery woman's build and striking style matches Tamina's. And if Roman wanted someone experienced, loyal, and capable of commanding fear, Tamina checks every box. She has history with Becky. She's been part of WWE for over a decade. And most importantly, she's family. She's trusted. If this is Tamina, it would mark a rebirth for her character. No longer second to anyone. No longer the sidekick. But a Shield enforcer in her own right. Theory 3, a newcomer from the shadows, the NXT call-up nobody saw coming. Now here's where things get wild. Some fans believe this woman is someone brand new. A dark horse. A hand-picked talent from WWE's Performance Center, personally trained in silence by Roman Reigns himself. Names being floated? Stephanie Vaquer, a Chilean wrestler recently scouted by WWE, known for her hybrid technical and striking style. Lola Vice, the former MMA fighter turned NXT standout with legitimate combat sports background and a deadly heel persona. Ava Raine, the daughter of The Rock. She's been in NXT, building quietly. If Reigns brought her in, the bloodline symbolism would be off the charts. Any one of these women could be under the hood. WWE is being intentionally silent. No names mentioned. No backstage leaks. No social media tags. It's a ghost protocol. And that silence? That's strategic. Because this mystery woman isn't just a sidekick to Roman. She's a foundational pillar in this new regime. The Shield was once built on equality. 3 men. 3 threats. And now? This Shield might be even more dangerous because it introduces something the original never had, a woman with the same kill or be killed mentality. And if her goal is to take out Becky Lynch? Then we're headed towards something explosive. Because Becky doesn't take humiliation lightly. She'll want revenge. She'll demand answers. And if this woman can take Lynch down in one-on-one combat, the entire women's division is on notice. We might be looking at the rise of WWE's new alpha female. A Shield member who doesn't care about titles or spotlight. Who doesn't need championship gold to be feared. All she needs is chaos. And Roman gave her the green light. Commentators on Raw have been tight-lipped. They've called her the unknown soldier. They've speculated, but never confirmed. And that silence? It's louder than words. Because when WWE doesn't say a name, it's because they're building something seismic. Something you don't see coming until it's already broken your spine. There's also an eerie symmetry in play here. Remember when Seth Rollins turned on Roman and Ambrose in 2014? It was betrayal from within that shattered the original Shield. Now, Roman rebuilds the unit, but adds a woman. A wild card. A force that Seth, and even Becky, never accounted for. In some twisted way, it's poetic revenge. A woman in black takes down the man. And it's only the beginning. Whether she's Naomi reborn, Tamina repackaged, or someone entirely new. One thing is certain, the women's division will never be the same again. Not with her in it. Not with Roman calling the shots. Not with war replacing entertainment. She doesn't need a name. Because soon? Everyone will know it. What happens when the man who spent months laughing at ghosts finally meets one face to face? What happens when the king of the mountain wakes up buried beneath rubble, with no crown, no defense, and no direction? That's what WWE witnessed on the night of June 16, 2025. Because when the lights came back on, when the bodies were cleared from the wreckage, and the Shield's new shadow disappeared into the crowd, Seth Rollins wasn't just beaten. He was broken. Physically. Emotionally. Psychologically. For a man like Seth Rollins, who thrives on control, calculation, and chaos of his own making, what Roman Reigns did that night wasn't just a beatdown. It was a message. And Rollins was the envelope it was written on. Let's rewind 24 hours to before the carnage. Rollins entered the TD Garden cocky, confident, cloaked in arrogance. He strutted through the halls backstage, cracking jokes with Paul Heyman, barking orders at Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed like a general inspecting troops before battle. To him, the show was already over. There was no opponent booked for the night. No title defense. Just another episode of Monday Night Raw where he would cut a promo, flash that trademark smirk, and remind the WWE Universe that he was the king now. He had everything. A championship belt slung over his shoulder. A faction feared by every name in the locker room. A loyal crowd of disciples on commentary who praised his every move. But deep down, Seth Rollins made one fatal mistake. He believed Roman Reigns was never coming back. And when that Shield music hit, everything he built collapsed. Rollins didn't even have time to prepare. Within 90 seconds of Roman's arrival, both of his bodyguards were eliminated. Breaker, the savage young lion, was knocked out by a thunderous spear from Reigns. Bronson Reed, the unmovable wall, had been taken apart by Zilla Fatu like a Lego set. And Rollins? He was left alone. Vulnerable. And terrified. He tried to run. But Reigns was faster. He tried to fight. But Zilla Fatu was stronger. He tried to yell for help. But the crowd drowned him out with chants that shook the rafters. The physical toll was devastating. Reigns delivered a Superman punch that looked like it dislocated Rollins' jaw. Zilla followed up with a knee to the gut so stiff it folded Seth in half. The mystery woman didn't even touch him, her focus was Becky, but just her presence unsettled him. Rollins knew. He could feel it. This wasn't a Shield he could outsmart. This wasn't 2014. This was now. This was vengeance. And when the triple powerbomb came, when his back slammed through the announce table beside Becky Lynch, Rollins stopped being a champion and became a cautionary tale. Medical staff had to help him backstage. He couldn't stand straight. There were rumors of bruised ribs, whiplash, and possible concussion symptoms. But worse than the physical pain? The look in his eyes. He wasn't furious. He wasn't plotting revenge. He looked hollow. Like a man who had just seen the monster he'd been mocking crawl out of the grave. Backstage, the atmosphere was somber. Rollins reportedly refused to speak to anyone after the show. Cameras tried to catch him for a backstage interview, but security was instructed to keep press away. Sources close to creative said he didn't go to the locker room immediately. He sat in the medical area for over an hour. Silent. Head down. No yelling. No defiance. Just silence. And Seth Rollins is never silent. Meanwhile, Paul Heyman? Gone. He vanished from the arena within minutes of the attack. No statement. No support. Just a black SUV screeching out of the underground parking garage. It didn't take long for speculation to swirl. Had Heyman seen this coming? Had he known Roman was returning, and abandoned ship before the storm? Was Seth now alone? And if so, would he even want to fight back? The fallout spread like wildfire. Twitter exploded with hashtags like hashtag Roman returns, hashtag Shield 2.0, hashtag Rollins destroyed. Clips of Seth getting speared, stomped, and triple-bombed hit 15 million views within 12 hours. Commentators on Tuesday morning shows were stunned. This was personal, Booker T said. This wasn't just a wrestling moment. This was a hit job. Wade Barrett agreed, Seth Rollins just got humbled. And when someone like Roman Reigns humbles you, it changes your soul. But maybe the most damning commentary came from an unexpected source. CM Punk. He posted a single tweet at 9:42 a.m. the next morning. Just 3 words, "Still think he's dead?" It went viral instantly. Even Punk, the self-proclaimed lone wolf, knew what the rest of the world had just witnessed. Roman Reigns wasn't finished. He was reborn. And Seth Rollins had been his first message to the world. But here's where it gets complicated. Because Rollins isn't just a victim. He's one of the most dangerous minds in wrestling history. The same man who betrayed the Shield and reshaped WWE. The same man who turned the fans into believers after years of being hated. The same man who built this current version of Raw into his playground. And now? He's going to have to decide what kind of man he is. Does he disappear? Does he spiral? Or does he rebuild? Does he find allies? Or does he stand alone? As of now, we've seen no sign of Rollins on social media. No statement. No promo. No update. But if you know Seth Rollins, if you really know him, you know that silence doesn't mean surrender. It means evolution. And while Roman Reigns may have broken his body and rattled his mind, he may have also done something even more dangerous. He may have reawakened the architect. Because a man like Seth Rollins doesn't just take losses. He learns from them. He adapts. And if Roman thinks this war ended with one attack, he might be underestimating the very man who once shattered the Shield from within. Still, the psychological blow remains. Rollins, who had everything, now has questions. Trust is gone. Control is shattered. And somewhere in the dark corners of his mind, a voice is whispering the one thing he never wanted to hear. He's back. And this time, he's not coming for the title. He's coming for everything. When you talk about resilience in WWE, one name always rises to the top, Becky Lynch. The man. The warrior. The backbone of the women's revolution. She's faced Ronda Rousey, stood tall against Charlotte Flair, survived steel cages, war games, and betrayal. She's bled. She's battled. She's led locker rooms and headlined WrestleMania. But on June 16, 2025, none of that mattered. Because Becky Lynch ran straight into a war she didn't see coming. And she didn't walk out. She was dragged. Let's be clear, Becky's arrival that night wasn't scripted fanfare. It was raw instinct. Her husband, Seth Rollins, was being torn apart in front of her eyes. No ally in sight. No backup. No protection. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed were already laid out. The Shield theme was echoing across the TD Garden, and 3 soldiers of chaos had surrounded the ring. One of them was Roman Reigns. Another was Zilla Fatu. And the third? The mystery woman. A cloaked, focused, merciless threat who would deliver one of the most stunning moments in recent women's wrestling history. Becky didn't hesitate. She sprinted down the ramp, steel chair in hand, heart pounding, ready to save her husband. The crowd popped like a volcano. This was Becky Lynch, after all. The man. The woman who doesn't back down. But when she swung that chair, she missed. The woman in black didn't flinch. She caught the swing. Midair. No panic. No stumble. Just complete control. And from that moment on, Becky was on the back foot. A right hand? Blocked. A clothesline? Evaded. The mystery woman dropped her with a vicious backbreaker that left Becky gasping for air. And that was just the beginning. What followed was 5 minutes of relentless domination. Becky tried to rally. She threw elbows. She scrambled. She struck from every angle. Nothing landed. The woman's technique was flawless. Her strike stiff. Her movement efficient. She wasn't there to compete. She was there to end Becky Lynch. And when the battle spilled outside the ring, when Becky was thrown into the barricade with a sickening thud, you could see it in her eyes. She was stunned. Not just by the physicality, but by the realization that she had no idea who this woman was. And that might have been the scariest part. For all of Becky's accolades, all her wars, all her enemies, she's always known who she was fighting. Charlotte. Bayley. Bianca. Asuka. Names. Histories. Patterns. But this? This was a ghost. And when the woman dragged her into the ring to complete the triple powerbomb alongside Reigns and Fatu, Becky Lynch became something she hasn't been in years, a victim. The footage replayed over and over the next day. Twitter clips. TikToks. ESPN highlights. Becky Lynch flattened by Mystery Shield member. Who is she? And has the man finally met her match? The headlines weren't kind. Some said Becky had lost a step. Some said she was distracted by Rollins' spotlight. Others said WWE's women's division had just found its new apex predator, and Lynch was the first casualty. Backstage, Becky was helped out of the arena. No interviews. No quotes. She didn't even stick around for medical evaluation. She disappeared. No tweets. No posts. No video packages. And that's unusual. Because Becky always speaks. Even in defeat, she speaks. But this time? Silence. And that silence is deafening. Because there are two possible paths for Becky Lynch from here, and both are dangerous. Path 1, vengeance. If this is the Becky we know, if this is the man in her purest form, then she's sitting at home right now, watching footage, rewinding every second, studying every movement of that mystery woman. She's remembering every strike. Every moment of weakness. Every mistake. She's not sulking. She's plotting. Because vengeance is in Becky's blood. She doesn't lose without answering back. And if this woman thought one surprise attack was enough to bury the man, she's about to learn otherwise. Becky's return would be nuclear. A promo. A call-out. A one-on-one challenge at SummerSlam. No titles needed. Just war. And if Becky wins? The legend grows. If she loses? She still leaves a trail of blood and proof that she will never be taken lightly again. But there's another possibility. Path 2, vulnerability. Because maybe, for the first time in years, Becky Lynch felt fear. Not fear of pain. She's dealt with broken noses, dislocated shoulders, and 30-minute matches of pure punishment. But fear of irrelevance. Of being replaced. Of not knowing what, or who, she was fighting. If this woman is faster, stronger, younger, more brutal, then what does that mean for Becky's future? Could this be her CM Punk moment? The match she doesn't come back from? The moment the industry passes her by? Her silence might not be a strategy. It might be confusion. Doubt. Cracks in the armor of a legend who's always known who she was. And if that's the case, then WWE may have just witnessed the beginning of the end of the man. The fans are already asking, what if this isn't just a feud? What if this is a torch passing? What if Roman Reigns just crowned the new Queen of Chaos, and Becky Lynch was the first offering? There's no denying the mystery woman's presence. She didn't flinch in front of a sold-out crowd. She didn't shy away from Becky Lynch's fire. She dismantled one of the greatest of all time, and didn't even break a sweat. And as of now? Becky has no answer. The WWE Universe waits. They want a promo. A rematch. A name. A reckoning. Because the man doesn't go down like that. Not quietly. Not off-screen. But the longer the silence stretches, the louder the questions become. Is Becky Lynch preparing for the fight of her life? Or has she already lost it? What we do know is this: Roman Reigns is back. He brought war. And he didn't just attack the men's division. He lit a fire in the women's division too. And now? We wait to see if the man can rise from the ashes. Or become just another casualty in Roman's new Shield.